Hello, everyone. I'm Amy Ross, and I am so excited to bring my friend Bonny-Lynn Russell back in to chat today. And what are we chatting about today, Bonny-Lynn?
Oh, I'm excited. This one's a good one. It's talking about that beginning stage. You've decided, you've got the calling. You're like, I think I want to learn more. How do I can become a Pilates teacher? Do you remember that moment? Yeah. And
Love.
it's right now, it can be very, the word that comes to mind is overwhelming, confusing, because there are a ton of options. So I think it'd be really cool if you and I could chat about, yeah, like maybe how to navigate those murky waters and to find your own way with how to find the right fit, the right program for you.
Absolutely. And I think part of finding that right fit is first looking at, what program is going to work with your life,
Yeah.
because it is something that is intense at times. There's a lot of information to share, but I think if it isn't something that supports your lifestyle, it is going to be an uphill battle. And you want to enjoy the journey. You really
Yeah.
want to enjoy the journey. And I think the other thing for me, which was really important, was that I really found a teacher that really resonated with me, that I could look up to in terms of skill and knowledge, and really also had that understanding and that real supportive nature to encourage me along the way. So that was what was really important for me. How about you?
Yeah, I think again, I came to my Pilates journey pretty young, and so when I kind of found out like what didn't work for me, to be honest. I started with, I mentioned last episode, like a 4-hour quick, you're done mat teacher. I can't even call it a certification, but I got some sort of certificate with my name on it. But I remember thinking, okay, that's it. There's got to be more to it. So I did do some research, and I did something called my first comprehensive program. So Amy, do you want to talk a little bit about what comprehensive means?
So that's a word you're going to see a lot of in the Pilates world when you're looking at schools. So comprehensive to me meant being able to look at Pilates as the whole system. Like, I wanted to understand why we did something on the reformer, and then we did it on the mat, and then we did it on the Cadillac, and then we did it on a barrel. I wanted to know how it all came together. And I think for me, I chose a classical comprehensive because for me, it really resonated with me in being able to see the beginning, the middle, the end. And that was really important, that I had that framework to
Mhm.
to build off of. And now what you get the framework, and then you can, continue to grow and evolve with that framework. But it's really being able to look at, this was designed for me. I knew it was by a guy named Joseph Pilates. If I was going to teach that, I wanted to understand his philosophy. I wanted to understand, how did all of this come to be, and what was really it designed to do moving forward. So for me,
Yeah.
and it's looking at it from, we're teaching bodies. They're fairly complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about for you?
For sure. Well, it is interesting. Like I did my first, again, not really knowing. And, it, when you say fit into your lifestyle, this is a stage of my life when I was just finishing my degree. I was single. I could just pick up and move somewhere, just any, which, if you have families and other jobs, like that wouldn't be a possibility. But I remember upping and moving to a place. Actually, it was in New York City, the first one I did, and it was considered a comprehensive training. But man, like, I don't want to say I was disappointed, because that would be unfair. I did learn a lot. And we covered the reformer and the Cadillac and the mat and the Wanda chair, a few small apparatus, but not really. But I remember leaving going, this can't be it. like there was just this little tingly in my stomach. I was like, something's missing, and I went into the workforce and I tried to teach, and I was teaching. I was doing it as my career, but I remember feeling very, what would be the word? Unsure, really unsure of myself. And I was craving this sort of like foundational system. And that is really what led me to the rabbit hole to really get into the classical method, because the classical method really provided that for me. But once I had that and I kind of got over the foundation and the sort of the overstanding philosophy of really getting people to return back to life and get them to move their best way and use all the apparatus as a system, I was like, mind blown. So that was, I did a comprehensive, but it was still sort of the beginning of my journey, if that makes sense. Still taught
Totally.
along the way.
And I
Yeah.
think for me too, I mean, I had, and even in my journey of Pilates, is I still love to learn from so many teachers of different backgrounds. I think that's so important because again, it's like, okay, does this resonate with me or doesn't it? And that's okay. Not every teacher or every way someone teaches is going to resonate. And that is totally okay. What I also really loved is when I found the classical was, like I said, the bookends, but the flow. I love that
Mm,
there was the ability to really get in there, get like sweaty, really trembly. And like, if that's what your body needed, that was available. And you could teach that and you could challenge that in so many different ways. And like to this day, I love getting the mat out, running through that advanced order, less than 30 minutes, and I'm
yeah.
drenched. Like, there's just
Yeah.
powerful about that. And that's, I had never experienced that before. When I came to my teacher training, I had really only done equipment. I had really never done the mat.
Hmm.
Got a real wide eye opener with the mat. I took a workshop before my teacher training started and was kind of like, oh my gosh. But it,
Yeah.
it's, so I think it's I love being able to have all of these tools in my toolbox as a teacher to be able to help the body that arrives in front of me. And that's what a comprehensive to me. And in that comprehensive was touching, making sure anatomy was piece of it, you know,
Yes.
making sure that safety was a piece of it. How am I going to keep clients safe, especially if I'm teaching maybe not, you know, super athletes. You've got people coming in who've got, chronic illness or chronic injury, and looking at all that and then diving deep into what does it mean to be a teacher?
Yeah.
How can I be the best teacher? And the teacher that Amy is different than the teacher that Bonny-Lynn is, and that's the beautiful thing. That's
Yeah.
the really amazing thing, that every teacher who goes through a teacher training has a gift to offer, and we want them to be their best teacher.
Yes, 100%. I was going to say that like every teacher has a gift. You can learn from them for sure. I think that something else that was really important to me, I soon realized, is that just, I could read a book or I could watch a video and, understand the information in my head, but I really create like that mentorship of like learning how to teach, like teaching skills, because you can learn it in your head, but to actually communicate that to another human being that maybe doesn't learn like you do, or maybe, yeah, like that is a huge thing. Maybe what would happen, when I was young, I demoed everything, because that was my only teaching modality. But it's like, no, what are the other ways that you could facilitate your voice to help get someone to learn so they're not just copying you, but actually embodying the work?
And they're learning a new language. We are
Yes.
teaching them a new language, we're inviting them to a new way to move.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember one of my very first teacher sessions. I had my cue cards and like and I was teaching rolling like a ball is really what I was teaching. And I can remember like trying to read all, like, I'm like just trying to get all the information in and I'm looking at the body and I'm like, what happened to the ball?
Yeah, that's not what I'm seeing. You're not on my cue cards.
Like you said, there's one thing to learn it and see it, but then there is a very deep skill of learning how to speak it. And yes, you have to rip the band-aid off and just do it. And it was cue cards is what that's what launched me into better days. But we all start somewhere.
Yeah.
And the other piece for me that I know you and I both can nerd out on is I love hearing the history of Joe.
Yes.
Like we teach Pilates, Joseph Pilates, like developed this. And I think I love to share that with my clients because I feel like, I feel a little bit of responsibility because it is his work. And I'm just, I get to share his work for a living, and that's an amazing thing. But there's, like knowing the history.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna say, like, it kind of, what I love sharing with clients too is that it sort of like normalizes it, because I think people think, oh, I've got to be, 5'11" and a unitard in order to do Pilates. And then it's like, no, this was like a German man, and he was doing, like, he wanted this for regular people. Like, it was when he's filming the work, he wasn't necessarily using the best bodies. I know that one image of him teaching the mat to that one, middle-aged, little paunch belly, balding man that just wanted to get his spine to bend. So I think it takes the pressure off in a way where they're like, oh, okay, this was like created for people like me.
Yeah. And it wasn't just the dancers like that. I think I always get asked, because I do not have a dance background. Not at all. That is not me. But I also think, going back and looking at his work from over 100 years ago is so relevant to today, is really the incredible thing. This modality has, it has surpassed, the test of time.
Totally.
And probably even today more important than it ever has been. And I think he'd be proud of that. And that, I feel, is important for me, it's important to share. So knowing the history can be part of that piece of a comprehensive training.
Yeah.
Maybe we could talk a little bit about, we touched on it, but on the anatomy piece, because that's huge. I mean, we are working with the body, so.
Yeah, 100%. So I want to just point out that everybody's going to be coming to their teacher training journey from a different background. I was fortunate. I had a kinesiology degree. We covered anatomy. I kind of came into Pilates knowing that knowledge. But there's people like you were working. You didn't have an anatomical background. Is that correct, Amy?
Well, I worked in a spine clinic.
Okay. So
I knew the basics, but I did not have intricate workings of a body. I knew what a spine looked like.
Yes, totally. And I think the thing that gets people, so it's important to note that not all comprehensive programs will offer it, or you'll have to pay additional fees to take the course as a prerequisite. But it is so vitally important. And I also think too, as Pilates teachers, we need to stay in our lane. We're not in med school here, but we do need to have an understanding of the body, the language, so we can communicate the proper anatomical language. And knowing where muscles are, where they attach, and what they do. That's really, and how they work as a group. That's really the scope of practice as a Pilates teacher. Now, you're going to continue to learn your anatomy as clients present challenges to you. I don't know about you, but I'm still looking stuff up when a new challenge arises. But I do feel like that's a big piece, but it is a learnable skill that sometimes I think people are intimidated. Be like, oh, I can't become a Pilates teacher because I don't know anatomy. It's like, oh, but you can learn it. You just have to put in the time like anything. And it becomes another lens of how you can look at the body.
Absolutely. And I think it's when you say it is achievable, and that like for every person to learn that anatomy, it isn't necessarily that the expectation is that you come and you're going to talk about which muscles doing which movement in every exercise. But again, it's you we the teachers then start to see how the body, like how miraculous the body really is
It
as
is
it comes
amazing.
together, and the choices it makes, or the movement pattern it makes, or just based on the journey it's been to that moment. And that gives you a little bit of it's just another tool.
Yeah.
Come back to tool in that box that you can educate, or you can talk to. And I always like to refer to Pilates as, we're kind of the next link on the chain. Like a physician is going to diagnose, treat in the acute stage. If it's a movement thing, a physio or chiro massage will get in. We're really the next link in that. We're going to show them how to move.
Yes.
We're going to show them how to move and show them how to move well, and keep moving for the rest of their life. So you take your anatomy with you through your everyday life.
Yeah.
Now there's a couple of different ways. Like there's like old school anatomy where like you had to just memorize, but there's other options that are available. And for me, that was a big piece of the comprehensive, was like, okay, if I got to learn all these muscles, I better know like where they are.
Yeah.
And I'm at like, so there's some visual options. Maybe you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I mean, what's so cool now is how the technology has improved. Even since I did it back in the day. But yeah, like even in my university, there'd be lectures, there'd be labs. That's an option. There's building the body out of clay for those like kinesthetic learners. That's an option. There's anatomy coloring books. But even now, there's like these super cool web either apps or softwares where you can be like, okay, I need to learn about my rotator muscles of my hip, like let's say the piriformis muscle. I can click on it and see the skeleton move 3-dimensionally and how it works. And then I can feel it in my own body. So that can be a really, really cool learning tool for sure. But I want to get back to these sort of ideas. So we've talked about the comprehensive program, how anatomy and the history have got to be a big thing. We talked about the teaching skills. We can kind of see there's different options. Like, what would you say? How would you decide between, say, I want to do like a mat only training versus a comprehensive? And then a part 2 to that, what do you think it takes to be a excellent mat teacher?
Oh.
I'll put you on the spot, Amy.
Yeah. So I think part of it is what you're passionate about, what your interest is, and I also believe what you have access to.
Yeah.
If it's like, I've done Pilates and it's something I'm really interested in, but I've only got a mat and I live in, I don't know, rural Canada, I think the mat is a great place to start, because it does introduce you to so many of the fundamentals, the understanding, and you can teach it anywhere. You can teach it anywhere, and you get a really good taste of what is to come.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the comprehensive would be more if you had access to the equipment, that you're a little bit familiar, I think, with it.
Yeah.
And then you start to, build that understanding through that additional repertoire on these pieces of equipment. And guess what? A lot of it can be related back to the mat.
You bet.
You can
Comes
see
full
that
circle.
It is a method. There's so much. And then what was the last one? What makes you
a good mat? Second part. So if you were, because I can tell you for myself, my little 4-hour mat training didn't cut it. But let's kind of talk about what would someone, if they were going to just do a mat training, what would be some like cool components to look for that you, with your teaching knowledge now, what makes a great mat teacher?
You got to feel it.
Yeah.
You got to be doing it. You got to feel it. You got to practice it. You really got to, embody all of it, because there is a different perspective from being the body who's being taught to the teacher to even someone who's watching.
The observer.
There's a lot to learn there. And I think, it's really and the funny thing is, like I said, I'd only come really from equipment, and then I have to say I really fell in love with the mat.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome to hear.
it it still can provide everything you need to move a body. And being able though to dive in and dissect some of the movements, some as like for me was really being able to like learn it, feel it, but then I had like a million more questions, and to have that opportunity to make sure it was really for me needed to be interactive. I have a lot of questions. I have more questions even now that I was done my training. I asked
Yeah.
more questions. So I think that that's really important.
I agree with you. And I think to kind of to touch on what we've talked about before, I think to be a great math teacher, having a understanding of the history, having a general understanding of the anatomy and some safety protocols for different bodies, and when you're, especially if you're teaching individual or group classes, having some sort of mentorship where you can really develop your own teaching voice, because you just don't want to be a robot and teaching out of a book, you or your cue cards, but having your own, taking that, I think that makes a great math teacher too, having different tools in their toolbox to help people when they're struggling. There's a lot to becoming an excellent math teacher. And I think I think people underestimate it, but it is, you can do, if you're going to look for to be a math program, I think you got to look for one that has all those extra pieces to really give you the confidence.
Yeah.
Would
And
you
I
say?
think the other piece in being a math teacher is then you're running a business. So what
Yeah.
things that are needed to set up a business? What are things to look at? Like, how am I going to start to market myself or teach? Like these
Yeah.
that those questions are at least those concepts are introduced and talked about, because it doesn't just happen. You don't just get a certificate and the people come.
Yeah.
There is that next stage of a journey of a business. And I think all of those are really important. That's just as important. Like you master that skill of the exercises and the system, and then you're going to grow as a teacher and a business person, and you're really going to be able to change the world.
Aw, absolutely. It's so cool. So so we've talked about the mat, what makes an awesome mat teacher, the comprehensive. I mean, yeah, the comprehensive is obviously going to be much longer because there's so much more work of all the apparatus and how it works as a system, but still going to have the anatomy components, the contraindications, the business, the life skills, the communication, finding your voice. All of those things are so integral to the comprehensive journey. Even doing, I don't want to call it rehab, but like being able to take people with like say hip replacements, knee replacements, spinal stuff, and being to safely move them or work with their healthcare team is going to be really important, that you have that confidence. But there's also another avenue of teacher training that I wanted to chat a little bit about today is, why would somebody perhaps do a different or another training program after they've already got the certificate?
Well, I believe the training's never done.
Yeah.
Like for me as a teacher, the learning is never done. And the more we're curious, the more we continue to grow our own skills as a teacher makes us better teachers.
Yeah.
And I think, to perhaps like why would you take another one? Well, I think there's lots of reasons. Might be you've got a real, you want to deepen your understanding of the work from a different lens, from a different background, right? I think, and perhaps even in a different format than what you've learned in before. The world, has changed and has opened to, the formats can change. It doesn't need to be necessarily everyone there for, you're not enrolling for a full year in school every day. It may be like that, like, again, work-life balance. Or you've come across, as you've been teaching for many years, you're like, you know what, I have some questions. I'm not really sure what to do with these clients. Like, how do I help them be better? That may be why you would entertain, another teacher training. And you're bringing a different skill set. You're starting in a different place. And I think and you've said it a few times, it really is, no matter if it's a mat, a comprehensive, or taking another certification, it's a movement journey.
Yeah.
It's a movement journey for the teacher as it is for your clients, but your movement journey from teacher through every certification you choose is really there to, change every client who comes through your door.
Totally. And kind of what we're referring to right now is, you'll probably see this in your teaching journey, is something called a bridge program. And it kind of is a cool word if you think about it, because if you say this is usually for people who've already done a comprehensive training, they may have been working. I can speak to that a little bit, that I remember I did that comprehensive program. I still had so many questions, and I felt I'm very unsure of my teaching. I still taught and I loved it, and people were getting better, but there were so many, I just felt like there was holes that I had so many questions. So a bridge program can really bridge the gap, and it can really give you that gap and that confidence to take up these. And it's not that you undervalue the training you did. There's still, all those skills come with you. What you do is you now bridge, and you add another skill set, another lens, and then you can take that to your clients and really make life-changing results. And I just think that that's such a beautiful thing. So for myself, that's why I did an additional training. And that's why I think some of these bridge programs are popping up and becoming much more popular now. People are craving that.
Yeah, and because there's so many different kinds of training, we didn't even touch on like what is like an hour commitment. Like there's everything from a very, like 100-hour-ish to 1,000 hours of training. And it's looking at what's offered within those hours of training, to be honest. And that the maybe in the beginning, all was available where you were was the
4-hour mat cert.
The 4-hour mat.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what was available. But then it's like you stayed curious and you wanted more, so that it led you to that next thing, into that next thing. And I think I saw somewhere once that they always say like Pilates teachers really, like, by the time like they've been teaching a few years, they have committed, like, you've got enough hours for really a PhD. Yeah. Like, as we are so curious into that, and that bridging the gap, I think, is just a beautiful thing. Is like, I've got these skills and I learned from this school of thought, and now I'm going to learn from this school of thought, and I'm going to create my own. And I think that only benefits. It's a wonderful opportunity for anyone who's interested in that. And I think it really only truly benefits our clients every single day.
Totally. Awesome. Well, that's a beautiful note to kind of end, because we could keep going. I know.
Forever.
Yeah. But yeah, just to recap. So choosing a program, it can be overwhelming, but you want to be making educated research on what is available. There are types of mat programs available, comprehensive bridge programs, and looking at those sort of components that we were talking about. Does it offer history, anatomy, teaching skills, business skills, life skills, to really nurture and mentor the teacher that you want to be, so you can really help people heal? Is there anything you want to add to that, Amy?
No, I think that's a beautiful place to end.
Great. Until next time, I guess. Have a great day.